Hello, guys. My name is Richard Shea. Welcome to our streaming session, dubbed Staying Afloat in a Sea of Options. I'm thrilled to be here in an abnormal AW year. AW 2020 is a little different, but it's going well, and it's going to be fun today. So I'm the moderator, longtime Advertising Week attendee and devotee, but I will do my best not to talk too much. So let's introduce you to our panel. I'm not seeing that 5 box or whatever it is. There we are. We can start with Kristin maybe and go around the horn. Just introduce yourself and let us know what your role is at your company.
Sure. Hi, Richard. Great to be at AW 2020. My name is Kristin Nook. I'm the head of local advertising at Roku. Little fun fact, I joined earlier in the year to launch our local efforts. And prior to that, I spent about 10 years in the streaming space. And before that, also spent some time in local broadcast.
Cool. So we can go to Matt, I believe. Matt?
Mark, sorry.
Mark,
this
sorry.
is Mark Rothblatt. That's okay. I'm Mark Rothblatt. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Tubi. And, I've been with Tubi for over 2.5 years now, and now we're part of Fox. And it's been a very exciting year as we have integrated into the larger Fox Corporation and continued the growth that we're seeing in streaming.
Good deal. Welcome. So we'll go to Jed.
Hey, Rich. I'm Jed Tarpey. I lead the media and entertainment sales team at Twitter here in the US, and I've been with Twitter for about 8.5 years. So I've been through some fun times at Twitter.
Good deal. And now representing Samba.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aden Zaman. I run corporate strategy and business development at Samba TV. Samba is a TV data and analytics company, and we're excited to join the AW 2020 programming today.
Well, thank you guys all for being here. Thanks for everyone for viewing and tuning into this. It's a different year, as I said. Typically, we're in New York and in crowded theaters and eating free M&Ms and popcorn and stuff. I wish we were there. We're not. I'm in my house right now. And I guess some of you are as well. We haven't cut the cord in my house, but we don't watch a lot of linear TV. In fact, typically watching my 2 kids and wife and I all on our own devices. But apparently 1 in 3 American homes has cut the cord, and streaming hours are way up. I can't avoid the sort of the lead of the day, right? Which is COVID. So if 2020 or the 20s were to be the decade of streaming, it certainly came in like a lion with the cultural and the health pandemic that we're dealing with. So maybe I'll go to you, Kristin, to start, because I know that you have a little info on how this kind of came in, charging in sort of like late winter, early spring, maybe Q2. Some of the things that you saw. Educate us a little on what exactly happened and where the spikes were.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming into 2020, Roku certainly expected that this would be the decade of streaming, as you mentioned. And what we have seen is that the pandemic has really accelerated some of that shift in viewership. So just in Q2, we saw that there was 65% streaming increases year over year. Roku added 3 million active accounts, which are actually more than the households that are in the state of Colorado. Having spent my whole career in local media, I love a good sort of local stat. But we just continue to see seismic shifts. As you mentioned, our cord cutter study that we come out with every year said that 1 in 3 households has cut the cord. And not only that, 92% of them are happy about it, right? So, they're turning to streaming services to really supplement what they may have previously found on traditional television.
Cool. So I might just open this up. I'm just going to throw questions for the most part. Maybe I'll address 1 or 2 of you on occasion, but which trends, and this is to whomever wants to jump in, the COVID, sort of the newest trends that maybe are taking hold, like what's sticking as we progress through the year and near the end of the year, what's cemented in the streaming world?
I'd say from a Twitter standpoint, we've definitely seen, the notion around watch parties have really taken over. So if you look at a lot of the platforms themselves, like Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, of course, they've all got watch party functionality built into the platform themselves, and enabling you to connect and watch content directly with friends, family. But on Twitter, what we've done, we've taken it a step further and really connected you with essentially the entire world. So instead of having that conversation with people sat together on the couch, you're now able to join in a much larger conversation with the entire world, and the ability to be able to still interact with people, albeit virtually, is still a critical thing that, we see at Twitter more and more, especially with movie type content. We're seeing more and more of our partners just craving it and leaning in and doing more and more around watch parties. And I think that's going to continue to gain momentum as we move forward.
And how do you track that at Twitter, like the conversation? How do you distill the conversations around content, and how does that then assist you with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we track, the average watch time that people are spending in these watch parties. We're able to see how long people are in there, how long they engage with the content. And then, of course, when it goes back to the clients themselves, we're seeing a greater focus on, what is the level of conversation we're seeing. Almost like as a proxy of success, is the conversation greater than it was previously? And we're providing tools like custom emojis or a branded like, which is an ability to play around with the like button on Twitter, that are just an amazing enhancement to this experience that bring people into an immersive experience that, like I said, we're seeing more of our partners really wanting to dig deeper into these.
Rich, I wanted to add, you asked what has stuck. I mean, I think it's really interesting. There has been this explosion in the growth of streaming, and everybody's reporting on that. And we saw that as well at Tubi. But we also wanted to see what's happening a few months in, because our growth has continued, our viewership has continued. And as I mentioned, we're a free ad-supported service. We did some consumer research ourselves, along with one poll. We found, polling from August and September, that 1 in 4 Americans age 18 to 34 had canceled a subscription service in favor of using a free service in the past couple months. So I think there's been this great growth and shift to streaming. There was proliferation in time spent across subscription and free products. And now there's some erosion, I think, in some of the subscription products. You hear about it with Quibi. There were some reports that they really didn't keep a lot of their initial subscribers, but free is really holding strong.
Maybe I'll just add that Samba sees both linear and streaming activity across literally everything people do across over 30 million TVs worldwide. And we saw linear streaming or linear viewership increase over 30% early on in the pandemic, but streaming doubled, and we've seen that continue to grow. And one of the things that's going to stick is this kind of willingness to pay for movies. So we did a study on Mulan, and we saw that over 1.1 million people streamed that movie for $30 during the opening weekend, and people continue to watch that. So I think that's one of the things that we're going to see continue post-pandemic, is a willingness to pay for movies that are at the theaters.
So, okay, let's go back to the appetite for advertising. So the consumer's appetite for streaming content and getting hit with ads. But from a media buyer's perspective, there's been some concern about frequency and repetition. I mean, is this legitimate? And what are ways that you can navigate to make sure it's not a problem?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristin.
All right. Yeah, I was just going to jump in from Roku's perspective. We've always taken frequency management extremely seriously. Being the platform, we can certainly manage to a user's frequency. And we've heard this from the marketplace and from our advertisers. And because of that, we've implemented new ways that you can work with Roku going into this year's upfront. One of the things that we can do is we can really manage against ad collision across other OTT buys. For the first time ever, we announced that we offered advertisers the option to only pay for incremental reach from your linear buy. So really thinking about frequency throttling and measurement. I think we can all speak to research studies of our own personal use. If you're getting hit over the head with the same ad over and over again, there is sort of a point of ad fatigue, and it's just going to be a bad experience, not only for the advertiser, but for the publisher and the platform, right? So, I think as an industry, we have to come together and really focus on best practices as it pertains to frequency management.
Yeah, I wanted to add in, it is a problem. I think Rich asked, is it legitimate? It is. It's because there's so many different ways that you can buy OTT. You can buy from the apps, you can buy from the devices, you can buy from the content owners that might have streaming rights. For example, if you're buying Hulu, we at Fox, the Fox side sells the inventory into Hulu. So you might be buying from Fox, and then maybe on a different piece of content within Hulu, you might also be buying from Hulu. There's programmatic means, and maybe you're getting some inventory from the devices. So Tubi launched advanced frequency management that takes into account, since we're serving within our own app, whether that might be coming in from either a device or some type of ad network that's non-guaranteed at a higher rate, or versus the things that are directly served. And we actually can manage that by transcoding the ads and actually knowing that these are the same pieces of creative. But it will continue to be a problem because of the proliferation in different ways in which you can access the inventory.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add that we recently launched a dashboard that provides a nightly update on cross-screen reach and frequency between linear as well as all the different OTT apps. And we've seen advertisers really start to use that to kind of understand, if they've got TV advertising running, and then also, like Mark mentioned, are buying ads on different platforms through different means, just having a view into, how many times is the average viewer watching that or seeing that ad on a daily basis, and then using data to kind of stop and suppress people who've already been overexposed.
Yeah, so just like how has the measurement, how has measurement evolved? If everything's fragmented, we were talking the other day, a couple of us, about the price of broadcast advertising hasn't gone down in equally with the viewership decreases. So I guess what are you bringing? Maybe Aden, you can start here. You work with everyone on this panel, I think. What are you bringing that's distinct, that's helping sort of move the needle with the way people are buying, and they're not just going age, gender, old school, metrics?
No, I think you hit it on the spot. Advertisers are now more interested in making sure they're reaching the right audiences and people who want to buy their products. So they're able to use, many more data sets beyond just age and gender, and look at, are these people actually, am I reaching the people who are interested in a luxury automobile, for example? And then measuring the reach and frequency within that segment, and then following that path to conversion all the way to, did this person who was exposed X number of times buy the product? And that's precisely how we're working with all of with Tubi, Roku. With Twitter, it's a little different. We measure hundreds of campaigns and look at how effective they are at driving viewership towards new programs and movies. But the measurement has gone from counting people to actually measuring outcomes, which is much more important.
So, and it's also quite crowded, right? So Jed, you've been around at Twitter for 8 years, you said. I mean, over that time, how many streaming services have launched? A number of them, right?
There's been a few, yeah.
Let's say, how does a new one break through, and then how does an established service sort of maintain its stickiness with the consumer and advertisers, and through existing catalog IP? How are these services getting eyeballs and distinguishing themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're right. We've seen plenty of them launch with us on Twitter over the years. I think, my team and I, we've really focused on this mantra of YOLO, being you only launch once, and the notion being that you really have to give it everything. A big part of Twitter and being successful on the platform is finding the right voice. So I think if you look at all the streamers together, Netflix stands out as one of the platforms that really found their voice early. Certainly, if you read the Netflix is a joke handle, for example, it's exceptional content. So I think as we've moved forward, we've used that as kind of the mantra of you've got to raise buzz, you've got to use all the tools in your arsenal and really eventize, a launch. So if I look at like Disney Plus, for example, they launch with this epic tweet thread. So, they really want to highlight the depth and volume of content they had. So they created this tweet thread where they were able to have every single piece of content that they were going to launch highlighted in that thread, and it was amazing. Similarly, like Peacock, they tapped into the nature of we're gonna like hatch when we launch at this time, and they had like a live stream of Peacock hatching. So it was all about eventizing and really making sure that this is the biggest thing that's happening on a platform where there's a lot of things going on at the same time. But then when it comes to post-launch, there's a similar notion in that you really have to eventize things. You really have to make sure that people understand that this is the most important piece of content that you should care about. And we're seeing all sorts of things. I mentioned some of the tactics that people use in making their content more visible. But we're seeing things like Hulu with Love Victor, for example, sharing a full episode the day before it actually released on Hulu. So little things like that, which enable them to really stand out in a very, very crowded marketplace. A lot of the things that we're recommending and talking to our clients about.
Yeah, and I can echo some of that as well. Obviously, being at Roku, we help publishers launch all the time. We would always recommend sort of a huge promotional launch because the space has become much more crowded. We do feel that there are 3 key moments for publishers being discovered, and we see that via our platform. It's during sort of the setup of their television or their device, when they're searching, and when they're streaming. We also see that it takes a lot of our users about 7 minutes to find and discover the content that they're looking for. So every minute is an opportunity for that publisher to really capture a user's interest. Post-launch, we also find that you want to continue to sort of measure and optimize and look at those results in terms of whether you're sort of streaming or promoting via advertising or through our native launch page. We have a whole team that is focused on working with publishers to help them understand the analytics of how people are watching and what's really engaging to sort of help them build and maintain their audience.
Yeah, content discovery, right? So what are the tools for content discovery beyond advertising, beyond pushing?
Yeah, I mean, at Tubi, that's really been our secret sauce. We've been around as Tubi since 2014, and our focus has been amassing the largest library of free titles, and then really providing a personalization engine so that it's the fastest path to finding that entertainment. Kristin mentioned 7 minutes of searching for the content. Our focus is on getting the right content in front of the right person, and delighting in that kind of speed. That is something that drives engagement, which drives more viewing and more ad opportunities, more audience. So it really is about data-driven, decisioning on personalization.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, I
one
think
thing
that's
I'd add
exactly
about
right.
Twitter. Sorry, go ahead, Aden.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say with Twitter, I think we like to think of Twitter as the world's largest focus group, right? So the ability to listen to people and listen to the conversation, listen to what they're saying, gives you a real opportunity to make sure you're putting the right type of content in front of the right person at the right time. So just as an example, we've seen year over year 29% increase in nostalgic tweets. So people are clamoring for nostalgia. Maybe it's the moment we're in, the way they feel. They want to feel safe. But things like Friends, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all that type of content that really evokes an emotion in people. They're putting that out onto Twitter, and I think it's just an amazing opportunity for certainly the partners we all work with. That they get to be able to bring that to their customers.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we work with many of the largest TV manufacturers like LG and Sony. So in the same way that Roku's doing a lot to help consumers, find content faster, we're working with the Sonys and LGs of the world to build in recommendations so that the same way that cable went to 1,000 channels and it became impossible to find any content. Now with hundreds of apps or on some platforms like Roku, thousands of apps. That content discovery and recommendations is becoming more and more important and needs to be data driven.
Yeah, so we're talking about the title of this is An Ocean of Options, right? And I remember reading not so long ago, the streaming wars, and they're talking about platforms. Is there a content war? I mean, you're talking about going back and digging into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I get it, right? But the appetite for old sitcoms ultimately might, be sated, right? So I personally have to see Outer Banks get back to production if I'm going to get through this winter. Is there a content issue or not so much because we have such a luxury of stuff in the can?
I would say the content issue is that a lot of streaming services might not really be sustainable business models under how they're operating. I mean, is Friends really worth $500 million in terms of the subscription fees and ad revenues that it generates? Maybe, maybe not. I think that there is definitely an appetite for finding things that you never saw from your favorite actors and directors and so forth, or things you'd heard about but hadn't seen, or seeing it again. So there is that portion of it from the content side. And the content war that maybe you're alluding to might be the arms race that might not be sustainable over time.
Yeah, and I would just sort of add that I think that there are so many options out there, but because there are so many options, people really have the ability to sort of customize their viewing experience. So sort of thinking about that cord cutting study that we had done earlier in the year, we actually found that 40% of the cord cutters had actually cut the cord because they had found free content on OTT, or they were offered an extended free trial to an OTT service, right? So we think that, both AVOD and SVOD are well and live and healthy, and it's really it's also part of the reason why we had launched the Roku channel over 3 years ago. And to sort of echo some of Mark's points, there is a huge appetite for free streaming on demand out there, and advertisers certainly want to leverage it.
All right, well, we're down to our last minute here. We started this conversation talking about the spike in streaming. When the pandemic hit in March, April. Do you think the consumption is holding up, guys, and you just sky's blue for what you're doing?
We've seen that consumption. Sorry, I was just gonna say we've seen that consumption is definitely holding up. I think the real challenge will be holding on to that post pandemic.
Yeah, we've seen we saw our viewership go to over 200 million hours starting in April, which was a big growth. And we've continued that every month since then and continued some upward trajectory with it.
All right. I'm afraid we are out of time with our panel here at AW 2020, but I want to thank everyone who tuned in or will, and I want to thank each of you for participating. Thanks so much for the education. Stay safe.